The attorney closed the folder and looked around the conference room. That concludes the reading of your grandmother's will. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then my mother smiled. She leaned back in her chair just enough for everyone to hear her and said, "See, even Grandma knew you didn't deserve anything." No one laughed. No one defended me either. My aunt lowered her eyes. My cousins suddenly found the polished table fascinating. My father stayed perfectly still beside my mother, saying nothing. I stared at the attorney. "My name," I whispered. "Was it skipped?" He hesitated for only a second before answering quietly. "No, Miss Roselyn, your grandmother's current will does not leave you an inheritance." The words hit harder than I expected. After everything I had tried to do, every letter I mailed, every birthday card, every voicemail that was never returned, this was how it ended. My mother folded her arms with obvious satisfaction. "I told everyone years ago," she said. "You walked away from this family. Grandma finally accepted it." A few relatives nodded awkwardly. That hurt almost as much as the will itself. I pushed back my chair, unable to stay another second. "If that's what Grandma wanted," I said, my voice barely steady, "then I won't argue." I walked toward the door, blinking away tears. My hand had just reached the handle when a chair scraped sharply behind me. "Everyone, please remain where you are." The attorney was standing now. His expression had changed completely. "There is one envelope," he said slowly, "that was never supposed to leave my safe unless a very specific thing happened today." Silence swallowed the room. I turned around. Even my mother looked confused. The attorney carefully opened his briefcase instead of the file he'd been reading from. From the very bottom, beneath a locked document case, he removed an old cream-colored envelope sealed with dark red wax. He laid it gently on the conference table. Nobody spoke. I had spent years believing I simply wasn't enough for my own family. Ever since college, my mother had insisted Grandma was disappointed in me. Whenever I asked to visit, there was always a reason it couldn't happen. "She isn't feeling well. She doesn't want company. She gets confused too easily." When I mailed letters, I never received replies. When I called, no one answered. Eventually, relatives stopped asking why I wasn't around. They accepted my mother's version, that I had abandoned Grandma when she needed family most. I never stopped trying. I just stopped knowing how. Watching that sealed envelope sit in the middle of the table, memories I'd buried began rushing back. Birthday cards I never knew were received. Holiday invitations that somehow never reached me. Family dinners where my mother quietly answered every question before I could. Across the table, she forced a laugh. "This is ridiculous," Diane said. "Whatever that is has nothing to do with Roselyn." The attorney didn't respond. Instead, he rested one hand on the envelope and looked slowly around the room, as though measuring every face. "My client left very precise instructions," he said. "Before I open this, I need everyone to stay exactly where they are." No one dared move. The room that had felt so certain only moments earlier suddenly felt like it was holding its breath. And my mother, for the first time that afternoon, stopped smiling. The attorney slid the mysterious envelope to the center of the table and quietly said, "This changes everything." No one reached for the envelope. The attorney kept his hand resting on it, as if moving too quickly might violate the promise he'd made to my grandmother. Finally, he looked up. "Before I open this, I have to confirm that your grandmother's condition has actually been met." My mother frowned. "What condition?" "I'm obligated to verify the events that occurred moments ago," he replied. "Until then, this envelope remains sealed." The confidence that had filled the room only minutes earlier began to fade. I stood near the doorway, unsure whether I should leave or stay. Part of me wanted to run before another humiliation found me. Another part couldn't stop staring at the faded handwriting on the envelope. Even from across the room, I recognized my grandmother's careful script. For the first time that day, a question pushed aside the pain. Had Grandma expected something like this? As everyone waited, memories surfaced that I'd spent years trying not to revisit. I remembered mailing Grandma a long letter after my 26th birthday. I'd written 12 pages telling her about my new job, my apartment, and how much I missed baking with her. Weeks passed. Then months. Nothing ever came back. I assumed she'd decided not to answer. Then there were the birthday phone calls. Every year I called. Every year the conversation ended before it even began. "She's resting," my mother would say. "She can't come to the phone. Maybe next month." Next month never came. Even family holidays felt carefully controlled. Whenever I offered to visit Grandma, my mother always stepped in first. "She gets overwhelmed. She's already had enough visitors. Don't make this about yourself." I stopped arguing because every attempt only made me look selfish in everyone else's eyes. Now, standing in that conference room, those memories no longer felt like isolated disappointments. They felt connected. The attorney folded his hands. "I have one question for the people present." Everyone looked at him. Did anyone hear Mrs. Diane Carter make a statement to Roselyn immediately after the will was read? An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. My aunt cleared her throat. "I've heard it." "So did I," one cousin admitted. Another relative nodded reluctantly. She said, "Even Grandma knew you didn't deserve anything." The attorney wrote something on a sheet of paper. My mother's voice sharpened. "People are making far too much out of one sentence." "You deny saying it?" the attorney asked calmly. She hesitated. "I said something similar." "So you acknowledge making a public statement regarding Roselyn's worthiness to inherit?" "It wasn't a legal statement," she snapped. "It was the truth." No one rushed to agree with her this time. The attorney made another note. My father shifted uneasily in his chair. "Diane," he said quietly, "maybe just let him finish." She shot him a look that immediately silenced him. That single exchange caught my attention. Dad almost never interrupted her. The attorney closed his notebook. "Thank you, that satisfies the first requirement." A chill ran through me. First requirement. How many had Grandma planned for? I looked again at the envelope. If she had expected today's humiliation with such precision, then maybe she had seen something years ago that I never had. Why would my grandmother make the opening of that envelope depend on me being publicly denied? The attorney broke the wax seal with deliberate care. Every pair of eyes followed his hands. Inside the envelope lay several neatly folded documents tied together with a faded blue ribbon. On top was a handwritten letter. He unfolded it and adjusted his glasses. "This letter is addressed to my entire family," he said. "It is dated 6 months before your grandmother's passing." The room fell silent again. He began reading. "If you are hearing these words, then the condition I feared has come to pass. If Roselyn has been excluded, or if she has been publicly shamed after the reading of my will, I instruct my attorney to reveal everything enclosed in this envelope." A collective breath swept through the room. My mother's expression hardened. "This is absurd," she said. "She must have been worried for no reason." The attorney continued, without acknowledging the interruption. "My granddaughter Roselyn has never abandoned me. If anyone claims otherwise, they are either mistaken or have been misled." The sentence hit me so hard I had to grip the back of a chair. Grandma hadn't forgotten me. She hadn't believed I stopped caring. For years, I'd convinced myself that silence meant rejection. Now I was hearing her own words proving the opposite. Several relatives exchanged uneasy glances. My aunt slowly turned toward my mother. "Diane, what did she mean by misled?" "I have no idea," my mother replied quickly. Mother became suspicious of everyone near the end. The attorney lowered the letter. "There is more." He reached into the envelope again and removed a stack of photocopied letters. "These are copies your grandmother instructed me to preserve." He placed the first one on the table. I recognized my own handwriting immediately. It was the birthday letter I'd written 3 years earlier. The one I thought had disappeared forever. My throat tightened. How? The attorney pointed to a small stamp on the corner. Returned to sender. But beneath it was another handwritten note from my grandmother. I never received this. He placed down another. Then another. Holiday cards. Letters. Even a Mother's Day note I'd addressed to Grandma after she lost Grandpa. Each carried dates. Each carried evidence they had never reached her. They were intercepted before delivery, the attorney said evenly. Your grandmother eventually became concerned enough to begin documenting every missing piece of correspondence. The room shifted. My cousin stared at the stack. Wait, Diane was picking up Grandma's mail after she stopped driving. So was I, another aunt whispered. I remember Diane saying she'd handle everything. My mother's composure began to crack. There has to be some mistake, she insisted. Mail gets lost all the time. Not dozens of times, my uncle replied quietly. For the first time in years, someone challenged her in front of everyone. She looked around the room, searching for support. Instead, she found uncertainty. I stood frozen. Every unanswered letter. Every forgotten birthday. Every holiday I thought Grandma had ignored. None of it had happened the way I'd believed. The attorney carefully gathered the documents again. These records establish only part of the story, he said. He reached into the envelope one last time and withdrew another folded document, separate from the rest. My mother leaned forward. What is that? His expression became even more serious. This, he said, is the document your grandmother instructed me to read only after the family saw the evidence already presented. My mother stood abruptly. No, if she wrote that near the end of her life she wasn't thinking clearly, you shouldn't read another word. The attorney met her gaze without flinching. Your grandmother executed these instructions while fully competent, and they are legally binding. He unfolded the document. Then he looked directly at my mother. The next document explains exactly why your grandmother no longer trusted one member of this family. My mother's face drained of color. For the first time that afternoon, she looked less like someone in control and more like someone calculating what everyone else already knew. The attorney unfolded the final pages. This statement was signed by your grandmother, witnessed and notarized, he said. It explains why she prepared the contingency instructions you've just seen. No one interrupted him. He began to read. Over the last year of my life, I noticed patterns that could no longer be dismissed as accidents. Letters I was told had never been sent later appeared in copies. Visits I was told Roselyn cancelled were never cancelled at all. Phone messages I was assured did not exist were later confirmed by my answering service. A murmur spread through the room. My uncle rubbed his forehead. I remember asking why Roselyn never came anymore. My aunt looked at my mother. You always said she refused. I believed what I was told, my father said quietly, almost to himself. The attorney continued. After discovering these inconsistencies, I instructed my attorney to help me preserve records before they could disappear. He removed another folder from the envelope. Inside were notarized statements from Grandma's caregiver, copies of visitor logs, and written records showing dates when I had tried to arrange visits that were marked as declined, even though I had never cancelled them. My hands trembled. Every unanswered attempt. Every closed door. They had all been documented. The attorney laid each record neatly across the conference table. This visitor log shows Roselyn requested appointments on 6 separate occasions. He turned another page. The caregiver's statement confirms those requests were never presented to your grandmother. A heavy silence settled over the room. My cousin looked directly at my mother. You told all of us Roselyn stopped trying. Diane began, but the words caught in her throat. She straightened her shoulders. Mother was confused. She probably misunderstood what people told her. The attorney calmly slid another notarized statement forward. This declaration was signed after your grandmother personally reviewed these records. She specifically addressed concerns about her mental capacity and requested independent witnesses. My mother's explanation collapsed almost as soon as she finished speaking. My father leaned back in his chair, staring at the table instead of at her. I never checked, he said quietly. I just believed you. No one answered him. The weight of that admission filled the room. The attorney picked up the final pages. Your grandmother also documented financial irregularities that began while one family member was managing portions of her affairs. Those matters will require additional legal review and are supported by records included with these instructions. My mother's eyes widened. What financial records? I will discuss those only as required by the estate, the attorney replied. For now, they establish the basis for the legal amendments your grandmother prepared. He held up a single signed document. I have one final instrument to present. Every relative leaned forward. Even the air in the room seemed to stop moving. The attorney placed the signed amendment in the center of the table. It was properly executed and takes effect immediately. He looked around the room before delivering the words that changed everything. This amendment overrides key portions of the original will. The attorney opened the amended will and looked around the room one final time. Your grandmother anticipated that, if this document ever needed to be read, emotions would be high. She instructed me to explain her reasoning before distributing the estate under these amended terms. He turned the first page. After confirming that my communications with Roselyn were being blocked, I realized someone was attempting to rewrite the story of our relationship. Rather than confront that person immediately, I chose to document every discovery with my attorney while I was fully competent. He lifted the stack of records already spread across the table. These documents include copies of intercepted correspondence, caregiver statements, visitor logs, and financial records. Together, they establish a pattern of deliberate interference. The room remained silent. No one questioned the evidence anymore. The attorney continued. Your grandmother instructed that the second envelope remain sealed, unless Roselyn was publicly excluded or publicly shamed after the reading of the original will. He looked toward my mother. That condition was fulfilled when Diane stated, in front of multiple witnesses, "Even Grandma knew you didn't deserve anything." My mother's shoulders slumped. She didn't argue. She couldn't. The attorney unfolded Grandma's final letter. My dear Roselyn, if you are hearing this, then the distance between us was never your choice. I discovered too late that my letters weren't reaching you, and yours weren't reaching me. I am sorry for every birthday we missed, every holiday we lost, and every moment you believed I had stopped loving you. Please never measure your worth by anyone's opinion of you, not even family. I have always known your heart. My vision blurred. For years I had replayed every unanswered letter, wondering what I had done wrong. Now I finally knew. Nothing. The attorney gently set the letter in front of me. Under the amended will, Roselyn is restored as one of the primary beneficiaries of the estate. Diane is removed from all authority over the remaining estate administration, and the portions previously assigned to her are redistributed according to your grandmother's amended instructions. A sharp breath escaped someone across the table. My uncle slowly nodded. So this was always what Aunt Margaret intended. Yes, the attorney answered. She designed the amendment to protect Roselyn if her concerns proved correct. He closed the folder containing the financial records. Because your grandmother documented irregularities in the management of certain assets, those records will be forwarded for appropriate legal review as required by the estate. My mother finally spoke. I never thought. Her voice broke before she finished. No one came to comfort her. The relatives who had spent years believing her story now looked at her with disbelief instead of trust. One by one, they turned toward me. I'm sorry, my aunt said first. I should have asked you instead of assuming. I owe you an apology, my cousin admitted. I believed every word. Others quietly echoed the same regret. The hardest moment came from my father. He stood slowly, his eyes fixed on the table. I failed you, he said. Every time you tried to explain, I chose the easier path. I believed what I was told because it meant I didn't have to question anything. He looked at me for the first time that afternoon. I don't expect forgiveness. I only wanted you to hear me admit it. I nodded, but I didn't answer. Some wounds couldn't be repaired in a single conversation. The attorney finished the paperwork, and the meeting finally came to an end. This time, no one avoided looking at me as I walked out. Months later, I moved into Grandma's old house, exactly as she had planned. The first thing I placed on the living room shelf wasn't an expensive heirloom. It was the stack of letters that had finally found their way home. Sometimes I sat by the kitchen window, where Grandma used to bake, and read them one by one, hearing her voice in every line. The inheritance mattered. It gave me security and a place to begin again. But the greatest gift wasn't the house or the money. It was learning that I had never been abandoned. The lies that separated us had finally been exposed. The people who believed them had been forced to face the truth, and my grandmother's voice had become the last word anyone would remember. The inheritance gave me more than Grandma's estate. It gave me back the truth no one could ever take from me again.